Episode of our webinar series on best practices in eDiscovery. I find today's presentation really fascinating, given the massive changes that transformed the workplace in a very short period of time. At first, it was work from home and then transitioned to work from anywhere. When some restrictions subsided, terms like hybrid work, work from anywhere, and the nowhere office defined a new borderless work environment driven by the pandemic. It was impressive to see most organizations quickly pivot to address that existential threat. Consequently, smartphones became the dominant productivity tool, enabling the remote connected workforce. My name is Jeff Fugit. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Lexbe, and I'll be the moderator for today's event. We've got a lot of information to cover, so I'll jump right in. Our webinars take place monthly and cover a variety of relevant eDiscovery topics, trends, best practices, and strategies. We've got limited seating, so be sure to register early for the sessions that are of interest to you. If you have technical issues or questions, please email us at webinars@lexbe.com and we'll address them right away. Our webinars are available online at lexbe.com for viewing via streaming video or downloadable as a PDF presentation or MP3 podcast. You'll find this webinar and a complete listing of other webinars at lexbe.com. To be notified of future live and on-demand events, please email us at webinars@lexbe.com or follow us on LinkedIn. Based in Austin, Texas, we provide comprehensive forensic services across the globe. In addition, more than 16 years ago, we developed our own cloud-based eDiscovery platform. We specialize in helping organizations forensically collect data for investigations and cases, as well as equipping them with an eDiscovery solution that gives them full control over the eDiscovery process, DIY capabilities, and incredibly fast performance. We have a highly advanced forensic lab staffed with experts that are Celebrite certified, which is the gold standard for smartphone collections. We've engineered the industry's most affordable and full-featured DIY cloud-based eDiscovery platform. We have the industry's fastest eDiscovery processing and document review platform. We deliver the industry's fastest return on investment per a study that was done by G2. And we have experienced eDiscovery specialists and expert consultants who are all ACET certified and ready to assist on a moment's notice. If you'd like a demonstration of our platform or a consult on forensic services, simply email us at sales@lexbe.com and we'll get that scheduled. Joining us today is Nick Marrero. Nick is the Digital Forensic Manager at Lexbe. He has over 11 years of digital forensics experience and a bachelor's degree in computer forensics from Bloomsburg University of Pennsylvania. Prior to working at Lexbe, he was a Discovery Senior Associate at Deloitte. Before I turn it over to Nick, I'm going to cover the rapid evolution of the workplace and technology and share with you some statistics on smartphone and app utilization, give you an overview of some of the electronically stored information on these devices, and ask for your participation in some polling questions to set the stage for Nick's presentation. COVID drove approximately 70% of full-time workers in the United States to work from home. Now we're seeing more and more companies requiring employees to return to the office in some capacity. As you can see here, the top 3 law firms and then tech companies like Google and Apple seem to be settling on 3 days per week in the office policy. Most organizations that I talk to are planning on keeping some level of work from home / work from anywhere option. The Pew Research Center does a really good job of covering technology consumption across the US. I'm not going to get into all the details of this slide because we'll be sharing these slides with you after the event. However, I did want to highlight, and with little surprise, that there are significant geographic and demographic differences in the utilization of apps and the internet. So understanding not only the character and quality of your custodians, but also their demographics and locations can give you some insight into what questions you might ask and how you would utilize a data map in the process. Again, no surprise here, but email and messaging utilization grew significantly during the pandemic, and I'm going to cover more of that shortly. Also, network connectivity, both cellular and broadband, was critical to the majority of Americans during the pandemic. Smartphone penetration in the US has grown to 85% as of February in 2021. And this is a huge number. While smartphones since their inception, have continually increased in costs. Most manufacturers have figured out that in order to grow penetration and sales, lower cost devices will be required. Apple recently launched a new lower cost iPhone. These moves should drive up the penetration percentage even higher. The average smartphone user utilizes 9 apps per day, 30 apps per month, and has approximately 80 apps resident on their device. Probably the most eye-opening stat on this slide is in the middle, where Zoom grew from 10 million daily meeting participants to 350 million daily meeting participants. You know, Zoom was a critical productivity tool during the pandemic and continues to be. And that's a lot of recordings and evidence. The pandemic drove messaging, web conference, and collaboration growth in a big way. You'll find all of these apps are enabled on smartphones. So it's a common place for us to see these apps on smartphones and see the corresponding evidence on smartphones when we do collection. Bring your own device programs, or BYOD, is where employees utilize their personal smartphone for work. Most of these programs have a policy and some level of cost reimbursement. The employee is responsible for the carrier service contract. This phenomenon started with the launch of the iPhone, which prompted executives to tell their IT departments that they wanted to use their own iPhone for work. The commingling of personal and corporate domains creates legal and security issues, but that didn't prevent the train from leaving the station. As you can see by the stats, smartphones are hubs of productivity and extend the workday for most organizations and their employees. And I wanted to note that last bullet point on checking your smartphone in bed and on the toilet. That will not be a polling question today. So that should put you at ease there. As you can see on this slide, smartphones are full of data, just a massive number of data sources. Sometimes this data is merged into a single file. As an example, location data is often embedded in photos. So when you take a photo, depending on the settings on your device, it will stamp the latitude and longitude of where that photo was taken. So there's rich sources of data on these devices, and Nick is going to go into the details. So I just wanted to give you a visual snapshot of what that looked like, and he'll elaborate on this. With BYOD, shadow IT has become an issue. Shadow IT is non-sanctioned IT that employees adopt to do their jobs. Again, the commingling of personal and corporate domains certainly exacerbates this issue. And now, with the Great Resignation and ease of data portability, the smartphone is often at the center of data exfiltration matters. All right, now I'm going to ask our first polling question. Are you seeing an increase in smartphones being sources of evidence for your matters? And while you're answering that, I'll thank you for participating in our polling questions today. All right, and our next polling question is, how many days a week are you planning on working in the office? 1 to 3, 4 to 5, 6 to 7? Never again. All right, thank you for participating in our polling questions. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Nick Marrero. Nick.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Nick Marrero, and I'm the lead digital forensic examiner at Lexbe. Today, I'll be discussing an overview of smartphone forensics. We will start the webinar by going over digital forensic best practices and the forensic workflow, and taking a look at smartphone growth and evolution over the years. We will then dive into mobile device forensics, their preservation, extraction, analysis, and reporting. The purpose of this webinar is to provide you with an understanding of mobile forensics and show you just how much data can be extracted and analyzed from your everyday smartphone. When it comes to digital forensics, best practices are taken very seriously. Every step of the forensic process plays a very important role in ensuring the data that has been collected is completely forensically sound, and admissible in court. Just like most fields, documentation is crucial. The documentation for any forensic collection usually starts and ends with the chain of custody form. We'll be taking a closer look at this form in a few slides. Photographing the evidence is also important. We want to ensure the device we received and analyzed is in the same condition throughout the process. Documenting any deformities, cracks, serial numbers, or just the general look of the device helps to guarantee that we're, number one, working on the correct device, and also if any issues with that device arise down the line, we can prove we received the device in a certain condition and returned it in the same way. This brings us to evidence handling. Most devices worked on in the forensic field can be categorized as they are handling the devices with care, storing them in proper, secure locations, and use the appropriate tools during examinations. These steps are often memorialized within the documentation, either on the COC or the report. Write blockers are devices that act as a bridge between the evidence and the examiner's machine to ensure no data is written or changed on the device. Write blockers can either be physical devices that you plug into the drive and then into the examination device, or it can be a software on the examiner's computer that protects any devices plugged into it from being altered. Write blockers cannot currently be used during mobile forensics due to the forensic software needing that write capabilities on smartphones. The forensic tools basically run on the device themselves in order to access as much as possible. If a write blocker was used during a mobile collection, the collection would simply fail. Write blockers will and should be used always in forensic examinations of other devices like computers, hard drives, and external drives. Next is coordination and strategy. This starts all the way in the beginning of the process between the examiner, the client, and the owner of the device. The examiner needs to coordinate with the client in order to get the device, discuss timing of the collection and return, what the client needs preserved and analyzed, what format they'd like the extraction of the data in, and the return of the device to the custodian or client. It is very common to have many meetings or calls in order to coordinate and discuss strategy, as well as filling in the client throughout the process. Ensuring the client gets what they request is a main goal of a forensic examiner. Reporting can be the most crucial step in the forensic process. All findings, processes, steps, tools, and details should be included within the forensic report. Most often, a forensic report is not needed, since a lot of the forensic work is just the preservation and extraction of data for review. Reports are crucial, though, in an analysis of the data, if an analysis of the data is required, and an expert testimony is needed. The next best practice involves the returning of the devices to either the client or the custodian, aka the owner of the device. Ensuring the device is returned in a safe and timely manner is important, especially since most people need their electronic devices for their everyday lives. Workflow and best practices go hand in devices for their everyday lives. Workflow and best practices go hand in hand, since best practices are imperative during the forensic workflow. We start on the left at the planning stage. This encompasses the beginning communications and coordinations. Next is the collection. Receiving the device and documentation are included within this step. Preservation comes next. Preservation is creating a forensically sound copy of the device. This copy is what we perform the next two steps on, analysis and extraction. Analysis will encompass any type of examination of the data preserved. Extraction is the pulling of the data, whether all of it or just pieces, to a format that is ready for review. The final step in the process is the return of the device. Let's take a closer look at the preservation itself. The device typically takes between 2 and 4 hours. This time is fully dependent on the physical size of the phone as well as how much data is stored on it. The size of mobile devices continues to increase over time, making the preservation time increase as well. If a device is received early in the day for any type of forensic work, it can be returned after the preservation is complete, and that preservation has been QC'd to ensure that it completed successfully. At Lexbe, if we receive a device via FedEx or UPS, we can usually have a 24 to 48-hour return time and can have it shipped back to the client for next day delivery. We often get asked about remote preservation capabilities. Unfortunately, it is not yet possible to remotely preserve a mobile device. There are a few alternatives though, and they are not as good as getting the device itself and having the forensic examiner preserve it in person. Cloud computing has made it possible to have a lot of the data that's on your phone also on the cloud. This data can be preserved remotely by accessing the service and pulling the data with our forensic tools. Mobile device backups like iTunes backups, iCloud backups, and Google or Android backups can be created by the owner of the device and either saved locally on their computer, or saved in the cloud. Backups are a great alternative if the phone itself cannot be handed over for preservation, but the biggest issues are depending on the custodian to properly create that backup, and that everything needed was backed up and that nothing was altered or it is always best to have any device that needs to be preserved to be done physically by a forensic specialist. Now let's take a look at the chain of custody. These forms come in all different formats depending on who created them, but they should all have the same general information within them. The chain of custody will detail the device itself, including the make, model, and serial number, and any other identifying information. COCs can include preservation information, including the start and stop times of the preservation and what tool was used. Any case information may also be included. The most crucial part of the COC is the signatures and dates and times. This part shows who had possession of the device, on what days, and at what times. Anytime the device is transferred between parties or line added and signed. This includes the transfer of the device between individuals within the forensic preservation stages and when the device is stored in a secure location during off hours. Here we are looking at a brief timeline of the mobile device and smartphone world. From the first official mobile device created in 1973, the first smartphone in 1994, and the iPhone's debut in 2005. It's truly amazing how much has changed in just the last 16 years since we first set our eyes on the iPhone, which arguably changed the course of society. Now we have unlimited amounts of information, entertainment, and communication mediums literally in the palm of our hands, something that was unimaginable not very long ago. Here we can see the incredible growth of smartphone users, tripling since 2012. Almost half of the world's population has a smartphone now. Another incredible feat for something that wasn't widely used until the turn of the century. Next, we see how the smartphone ecosystem looks. As of 2020, over 70% of all smartphone users have a phone with an Android operating system. This is due to Android being an open source OS that many smartphone producers can easily integrate into their own devices. It's also due to Android devices coming in many budget-friendly options, all the way up to the high end with top features. Apple's iOS comes in next with about 20% of the market. Since Apple does not have an open source OS, only Apple devices run that operating system, limiting the availability to only those willing to pay more premium prices. The final two main operating systems you may encounter include Windows Mobile OS and BlackBerry's OS. Neither of these phones or operating systems are in production anymore, but they were much less rare 10 to 20 years ago. So these may pop up every now and then if older devices lying around need to be preserved and examined. There are some other operating systems for smartphones out there, but they are incredibly rare to come by. Before getting into the details of mobile forensics, I'd like to talk about some challenges we come across. First, which is the smartphone market. Since new devices and updated operating systems are coming out constantly, forensic tools need to continuously work on updating their software to accommodate the ability to preserve them properly, as well as decode the preserved data correctly. Along with these tools needing to be updated, forensic examiners need to keep up on those new devices and OSs to be able to properly analyze that data. Encryption and security is very important to everyone who owns a phone. Smartphone manufacturers highlight their device security at their events and have made it one of their top priorities when developing new devices and software. With better security comes the challenge of accessing the phone's data for examination. This is another area companies like Cellebrite and Magnet Forensics work constantly to overcome in order for data from mobile devices to be properly extracted and as completely as possible. The physical data size of smartphones has been a challenge as well. Every year we get new phones with bigger available storage options than the last. With bigger storage sizes comes more data on the phone, which in turn means more data to collect, making the examination process take more and more time. We are continuously working on solutions to these hurdles, specifically forensic software companies and their work on their software to keep up, and also training courses for forensic examiners being updated to train us in new technologies and examination techniques. Most forensic software companies offer training and certification in their tools, updating their training curriculum as the field changes. Cellebrite, one of the leading mobile device forensic softwares, supports over 12,000 different mobile devices. As you can see in these screen captures, a lot of these mobile manufacturers are probably unrecognizable to you, like they are to me. The great thing is, with the ability to preserve and examine such a huge variety of smartphones and even old brick or flip phones, the odds of coming across a device that can't be examined is very slim. A lot of these manufacturers can be much more popular outside of the US, so having all of these options is amazing. Once a manufacturer is selected, you can then narrow it down by model. For instance, if you select Apple, then select the iPhone 12 Max, say, which number, since a lot of phones that look like they're under one model could be under an even more specific one. Cellebrite also allows you to auto-detect the device and will choose the correct one based on what's connected to the examiner's computer. Finally, you can use their search function to locate the phone based on a model number or name. There are a few different preservation or extraction methods, including physical, logical, file system, and SIM card. Here we can see a few examples of the differences between the main three methods. The physical extraction is the #1 best kind. This is a bit-for-bit preservation of a mobile device, which includes the unallocated or unused space of the phone. Unallocated space is where, if not overwritten, data in a little bit. Unfortunately, as smartphone security grows, physical extraction capabilities shrink. In order to perform a physical extraction, access to the device's internal memory is needed. These security measures made by the smartphone's manufacturers do not allow tools to access everything needed for this type of extraction, making this type of extraction unsupported by forensic tools for more recent devices. A logical extraction will pull the user data, which includes text messages, call logs, videos, photos, and pretty much what the user can see or access on their device. This is the quickest collection method, but will pull the least amount of data. The file system extraction gets the files embedded in the memory of the device, as well as retrieving the artifacts within the logical extraction. It can also get hidden system files and databases on the phone that the user does not normally have access to, but contains some very vital information. An advanced logical is basically an extraction that combines the logical and the file system data, making this type second best only to the physical extraction. The advanced logical extraction has become the standard for iOS and Android devices. You can also extract data from SIM cards. Even though not much data can be found on the SIM, user and network information can be obtained. Older SIM cards used to store user data like call logs and contacts. Manual collection, this is literally using a camera to take pictures of the screen of the phone. It is very time consuming and not forensically sound, but if there is no other way to get the data, a manual collection will have to suffice. Now let's look at what can be extracted from a phone. There's so much information on the devices today that it's hard to get a clear picture of everything on it. The vital data about the device itself will get pulled. This includes all of the identifying information about the phone, like model, serial number, IMEI, and phone number. It will also display setting information such as if cloud backup and Find My are turned on, location information, time zone settings, and the message retention policy of the device. Time zone settings and the message retention policy of the device, which is the setting to delete messages after a certain time frame if it's turned on or not. As for the actual content of the phone, so much can be discovered about the user and what they did on the device. All of the applications they used, calendar entries, call data. You can view and analyze the photos, videos, audio files, and other documents saved on the phone. Crucial information such as location data, search and web history, and even account logging credentials are made available for analysis. And of course, maybe the number one requested data set can be viewed and analyzed, which is messages. This will also break down messages and other artifacts by apps or other categories. So if WhatsApp messages are what need to be looked at, these tools will have them readily grouped and available for review. Here's another view of the extracted data within Celebrate. I can select one of the main categories and analyze that data within it. One of my favorite features is Timeline View. This view breaks down all of the device's activity from every category of data and sorts it into a timeline. This is great for examinations that are focused on specific days or time frames. This view and feature can show that person X sent a text at 1 p.m. on the 4th, connected to the Wi-Fi at this location at 1:02 and then search the web for such and such at 103. You can break down the time frame, or like we see here, view everything on the device from its lifetime, plus some, since it will show data on the phone that existed beforehand. Like if you save the picture that was created in 2010, it will be part of the earlier part of the timeline. Messages and chats can be sent or received from such a large variety of different applications. Since tools like Celebrate break it down by app, it can become a lot easier to find the specific message you're looking for. Within the tools, messages are grouped by conversations. So a conversation between John and Ann will be separated from a conversation that's between John, Ann, and Tom. Conversations can be sorted and searched by participant, time frame, and even by keyword. Conversations are displayed very similarly to how we see them on the phone itself, in the classic bubble view. This helps easily display the chat, identifying which party sent which text and at which time, and includes any attachments such as photos and the metadata for every piece along the way. This brings us to the next topic, metadata. Metadata is, simply put, data about data. No matter the file type, there will always be some form of metadata within that file, though the amount of metadata varies between different files. Very useful and even crucial evidence can be discovered. Information on the file's creation, modification, author, when it was last accessed, and the size of the file are pieces of metadata within that file. Size of the file are pieces of metadata within that file. This information is helpful in creating a timeline of events, finding when a document originated, what the hash value of the document is, and what type of file you're examining. The hash value is an especially important part of metadata, given that this string of numbers and letters is essentially the fingerprint of the file. This value can be used in distinguishing two similar files from one another or proving that two files are the same. If the content of a file gets altered, the hash value gets altered. The hash can prove very valuable in cases where suspected IP theft is involved. Comparing the known hash value of the source file to a suspect's collected devices in order to confirm or deny that theft of any documents is a great example of where hash values and hash analysis come in handy. The examination of deleted data is tricky in today's mobile forensic world. As I mentioned before, deleted data resides within the unallocated or free space of a smartphone. In order to collect that space of a device, a physical extraction needs to be performed. Due to mobile device manufacturers essentially limiting any type of access to that space, a physical extraction is not possible, and therefore recovery of deleted data can't happen. Since older devices don't have these limitations, a physical extraction can occur, and the recovery of deleted data is possible there. When a file is deleted, the space on the deleted data will stay on that device until it is overwritten. It's much more likely to recover data that has been deleted recently, since there has been less time for that data to be replaced. Partial recovery of deleted data is possible, since new data may not completely overwrite that old data. In these cases, not all of the metadata will be present, so metadata or contents of the data will be lost. The reporting stage of the forensic process occurs towards the end after the collection, preservation, and analysis is complete. A forensic report will provide a complete picture of the entire examination from beginning to end. Reports are normally only requested if an analysis of the data occurs, all the information about that device, software used during the examination, and supporting evidence will be included within the report. There isn't a standard format of forensic reports, but they should all include the same information about the case and analysis. Forensic software tools sometimes have a reporting feature, which will take whichever evidentiary information you like and generate a report. The forensic examiner can use this to build the rest of their report around. In terms of review, data from a collection can be exported into a number of different formats. A PDF can be great for the review of text messages, providing all of the metadata as well as the contents of the conversations. An Excel report for a large amount of data for easy sorting and filtering, or an HTML report for easy viewing of all relevant information and contents. The native files will be exported along with B-type file types for cross-referencing and viewing. Now we come to the data load file. Relatively recently, some forensic tools like Celebrate have introduced the ability to export a data load file. This provides the useful ability to easily transfer data from a forensic preservation to an eDiscovery review platform for review. All of the information necessary for review is included within the load file, and once uploaded, review can be performed of the relevant evidence. These load files integrate perfectly with Lexbe and other review platforms. This brings us to the end of our discussion on smartphone forensics. Some key points I'd like for you to remember include what mobile device forensics is, which is a subset of digital forensics pertaining to the acquisition, preservation, and analysis of mobile devices. There are many different, and a lot of those, are unheard of here in the US. Android and iOS are the two main operating systems for smartphones on the market. The different mobile forensic extraction types include logical, file system, physical, advanced logical, and manual. So much data can be extracted from a phone, and forensic tools do a great job at ingesting the data and sorting it for analysis. Metadata is data about data, and all files have it. Deleted data cannot always be recovered, especially from newer devices. And finally, reporting, which is the final step of the process, detailing everything that occurred during the examination. I'd like to thank you all for your time today. Now, passing it back to Jeff.
Thanks, Nick. That was a great presentation. I'm going to briefly walk you through how Lexbe helps law firms and enterprises address forensic collections and eDiscovery. At Lexbe, we provide comprehensive remote and on-site forensic collections that are fully defensible. We utilize industry-leading tools like Celebrate and Magnet. We handle a very wide range of device and account types, as you can see on this partial list. And with that, I'd like to ask our next polling question. Do you have a forensic collection project, and would you like a complimentary consult? All right, I'll close out that polling question. With Lexbe's eDiscovery platform hosted at Amazon Web Services, you get on-demand capabilities that scale to address the needs of your case. So if you had a large collection of data from smartphones, that data is quickly ingested into the Lexbe eDiscovery platform. And with Lexbe's cloud infrastructure, you can get from document ingestion to review faster and get your productions out the door faster. All of your remote or mobile connected employees can access the Lexbe eDiscovery platform via web browser. And it works great on Macs, PCs, iPhones, and Android devices, although doing a large document review on a smartphone is a little hard on the eyes, so I wouldn't recommend that. Unlike many eDiscovery providers, you don't have to move your data from one solution to another. Lexbe has fully integrated processing, review analytics, case timelining, artificial intelligence algorithms, and production capabilities. We also have our own AI algorithms and predictive coding, which other providers often outsource to third parties. So keeping your data in an end-to-end eDiscovery platform like Lexbe helps eliminate the risk of errors from moving data between platforms, as well as eliminates cost of what other providers often call promoting data from one platform to the next. And you can do it yourself and don't have to use expensive eDiscovery project managers. Traditional vendors charge you per gig to load the data into an early case assessment solution where they process the documents and perform functions like deduplication and denest. At Lexbe, we don't charge for that. Since Lexbe is an end-to-end solution, we don't have to move or promote the data from one platform to another, which other vendors also charge for. Lexbe's hosting rate is also less than theirs, and we don't charge user fees. So they usually charge between $50 to $95 per month per user. Our cloud-based technology is simply more efficient, seamless, and enables you to handle document-intensive matters. All right, Lexbe transcription services. We talked about the growth of Zoom earlier in this session and other web conferencing services due to the pandemic. We're seeing a big growth in audio recordings and video recordings and matters. With Lexbe's transcription service, you can easily incorporate these files into your document review workflow. Our neural network transcription engine generates a transcription that identifies the different speakers, timestamps where the dialogue takes place on the recording, and makes it all fully searchable at a fraction of the cost. Lexbe utilizes AI and machine learning algorithms for several applications, including transcription, translation, sentiment analysis, cognitive image recognition, entity identification, and more. These algorithms are tuned to perform these tasks and enable firms to handle document-intensive matters with limited staff. These AI functions are fully integrated into the Lexbe eDiscovery platform. If you've got large email sets to review, our email threading capability enables you to streamline the process. With the email thread visualization, you'll be able to quickly identify missing emails in a production, view the metadata without having to click into every email, and you can view side-by-side color designated comparisons of emails within the platform. So it makes it super efficient. You can get through large email sets in record time. Now I'm going to talk to you about eDiscovery pricing briefly. The purpose of eDiscovery technology should be to improve your document review capabilities while driving efficiencies in both time and cost. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of eDiscovery providers that don't pass on the cost savings that technology affords. We host the Lexbe eDiscovery platform in the Amazon Web Services cloud. Our processing, storage, and networking capabilities are not only highly advanced, but they're also incredibly cost effective, and we pass the savings on to customers. Here's an example of how we compare to a relativity reseller. We engineered and developed our own cloud-based eDiscovery platform more than 16 years ago and continue to innovate and improve with each new release. And in this comparison, you'll see that the relativity reseller charges $30 per gig for data ingestion, processing. Our highly efficient processing servers enable us to offer this for free. While the concept of promotion might sound good, this is usually a cost associated with moving data from one platform to another, as I mentioned before. The Lexbe eDiscovery platform is an end-to-end platform and doesn't require that you move your data. And in this case, not only does it save you $125 per gig, but also helps eliminate data handling errors. We also don't charge user fees. As I mentioned, you can have as many users as you need at no additional cost. And we have 7 different user permission levels to help you keep your data secure. We don't nickel and dime you either with OCR or electronic endorsement fees per page. We also have highly advanced analytics integrated into the platform at no additional cost. And we're able to deliver savings on the hosting costs too. So regardless if your case is small or document intensive, I'm confident you'll find that Lexbe delivers the industry's best return on investment. And with that, I'll ask our last polling question. Would you like a demo of the Lexbe eDiscovery platform? Thank you for attending today's session. We'll be making the following available to webinar attendees: a recorded streaming version, an MP3 podcast, and a PDF. Please let us know if you have any questions or comments about this webinar or suggestions for future topics. This webinar is part of the Lexbe eDiscovery webinar series. For notices of future live and on-demand webinars as part of this series, please email us at webinars@lexbe.com or follow us on LinkedIn. And with that, I'd like to thank Nick for presenting today and thank you for attending. Watch your inbox for an invite to our next webinar on best practices in eDiscovery. Take care.